right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. And this week we are rendezvousing with one of our favorites, Richard Mori, and of course my co-host, Linn. Hello, Lee.
Hello, hello.
This is the coffee break edition, everybody, and I'm sitting here with my cup of coffee, no cream, no sugar.
I have the real thing in mind.
What are you nipping on there, Richard?
I don't nip too much, Ed. Not that I can't, and I do have a bottle under the table, but I just don't usually nip.
Yeah, well, mine's just coffee. This is the first today, so.
Well, it's 6 o'clock. It's 6 o'clock for me, and I made a clamshell box today, my second one,
Ooh.
and I'm ragged. I'll tell you what.
Is that going to be under your table at the book fair?
Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Yes. I told you, under the
15
table.
men on a dead man's chest. Whoa ho ho, and a bottle of rum. So anyways, I was saying I made a clamshell box today, and I got to practice. Before you know it, I'll be making these things at Carnegie Hall.
Well, they do that at Carnegie Hall.
You're in the wrong place if you're at Carnegie Hall doing boxes.
Yeah, making clamshell boxes.
And the wrong instruments. But anyways, folks, if you're tuning in and you see in the upper left-hand corner of the screen some goofy picture with me in a book hat, that was recently taken at the Frankfurt Book Fair, and I spent the last 4-day weekend at the book fair, and we're going to have our producer cut that in, and when it's over, we'll talk about it a little bit. Go ahead there, T. Allen Smith, fire it up. All right, everybody, here I am in the great famous city of Frankfurt, Germany, the banking capital of Germany, and pretty much the banking capital of Europe. And here you can see on the fabulous skyline some of the remarkable buildings. This one straight in front of us with the cross on top and the green roof, that's where the first Congress met of Germany in 1848 and established Germany as a state as the time. Off there in the distance, you see the great Cathedral of Frankfurt, and right next to it, the town hall. Most of the city was bombed during World War II, but it has been reconstructed very much in the same mode and same style as the buildings pre-World War II. Here at the Frankfurt Book Fair, author Salman Rushdie will be receiving a special award. He will not be silenced. The author is being given the Peace Prize of the German book trade for his indomitable spirit, his affirmation of life, and for enriching our world with his love of storytelling. And the aides here at the fair couldn't be any more helpful. As I walk into the Mesa Festival Hall for the 75th Frankfurt Book Fair, I look upon this map and see before me 2 action-packed days with book dealers from all around the world: Australia, New Zealand, Singapore, Vietnam, the Arab world, Latin America, Cyprus. And we also see other activities like distributors, wholesalers, authors, and every aspect of the book ecosphere. The guest of honor at this year's Frankfurt Buchmesse Book Fair 2023 is Slovenia, a honeycomb of words. One of the fun and interesting aspects of this fair is a chance to meet the authors. There are dozens of authors here, and you can sign up for a 15-minute time slot to have the author sign your book and have a short and meaningful discussions with the authors themselves. What a great idea that is. The Frankfurt 75th Annual Book Fair, probably the largest book fair in the world. Now, could you imagine 75 years puts us back to 1948, just 3 years after the end of World War II. What an amazing love for books that people in this country have.
comics in the Philippines. And our books couldn't make it to bookstores because of government papers and requirements and permits and taxes. And it was very impractical to have a business for just one.
But I think
This book fair is an amazing place featuring publishers from all over the world, including the largest, like Penguin Random House and Macmillan.
Yes.
And those from the Middle East, like Abu Dhabi. And here on the mezzanine of another one of the great halls are even more publishers. You can see folks from Canada, the United States, England, France. A lot of familiar names: Gardner's, Ingram, Macmillan. This is all what goes on behind the scenes before the book finds its way to your nighttime bedstand. Everybody likes to leave behind a little piece of themselves on a wall of history. And oh, wait, look. There's MontgomeryRareBooks.com. And the geographic journey continues. Here we see book publishers and sellers from Latvia. In the background there is Sweden. The red sign is Norway. Flanders. Holland. Estonia. Judging from this book fair, reading and publishing is alive and well in all the corners of the world.
Read more German classic than me.
Attending the
because for
author
me it was
interviews are perhaps
somehow
one of the most
boring
interesting
to
parts of the
read
show.
But for him not. He's a guy who here always audiobooks. His business flips.
The journey continues with publishers from Ukraine, Romania, Armenia, Lithuania, and Hungary. The book fair was not the typical book fair that I expected, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. It is the largest book fair in the world, but it's predominantly for authors, publishers, and that end of the business, the part of the business that we don't get to see as booksellers. We get to see the part of the business once the books are on a shelf, especially new bookstores. But we don't really know what, or at least I didn't really know what goes on behind the scenes. So that was a great experience for me. How about you, Lynn? Do you have much experience on the publisher side?
Well, not a great deal, but some of the shows that I have done, like the Atlanta Journal-Decatur Book Fair, is focused on new books, authors, publishers, workshops with those authors, readings, this kind of thing. And then the antiquarian, our show was just kind of a side supply to it. And this was also true of one in South Carolina that we used to go to. That actually the antiquarian aisle sort of dwindled down to nothing because people were there primarily to look at new things, to hear authors, to go to readings, to talk to publishers about getting their own things published and this kind of thing. So it's a whole different thing. When they can work together, it's great. We get to see a side of things that we don't normally see, and people who are attending get to see a side, our side, that they may not be familiar with. But it's hard to make the two work together, but I assume that in Frankfurt this does work pretty well.
I had no idea how long it takes a book to get published. I mean, they're preparing for the 2025, 2026 book release years as of right now. It's got to be disheartening if you're an author and your manuscript is done, your editor's finished with the red line copy, and now you gotta wait.
Yeah, well, even people that we know in the antiquarian trade who have also published some books with small presses, the wait is just years, sometimes. Just years. You kind of forget what you've written in that length of time, I think.
I empathize for those authors.
It's probably why we don't write books.
But I'll tell you, I did have some good fun while I was in the town of Frankfurt. Two of the memorable standouts was I visited the museum and the former home of Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, one of the founders of Romanticism. And I also visited the archives of Albert Schweitzer, both being located in Frankfurt proper. So it was a fun weekend.
Did you buy anything?
Well, I did go to a rare bookstore, and when you go into a bookstore, you just feel obligated to pull out your credit card.
Well, we hope so anyway.
We hope so. That's right. But then I did buy something. I bought a manual. You would have enjoyed this, Richard. USAEF, United States Army Expeditionary Force of Germany, with map included. Last week, Richard, we were talking about how important it is for the maps to be included in the books about the trail system, the Appalachian Trail system, and this one had a German map of the countryside in there for the soldiers.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It was good. And then this weekend is actually an antiquarian book show in Milan. So I'll be going to Milan this weekend and seeing what a real, bookseller book fair looks like.
Well, I'm really feeling bad for you, Ed, having to do all that traveling.
It is sad. And all that socializing, I'm sure.
It was actually, I met a very good client there. I met a client from Idaho, Boise, Idaho, who was at the fair and went to dinner with him and his wife, and it was a good schmoozing time.
Well, that's an important part. That's an important part of book fairs.
It is, especially when you like your customers too.
Yeah. And when they like you.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Speaking of book fairs, the two of you got something coming up this weekend, don't you?
We
Yes,
sure do.
We do.
All right, take it on over.
Go ahead, Richard. This is
Well,
your show.
You're flying in Friday.
I am.
Your books are on the cart, waiting to go
Right.
downstairs and be put in the van, and they'll be waiting for you at your booth when you get there.
I can't complain about that service. That's for sure.
Hey, I just want to make sure you can't hear me crunching potato chips, can you?
Well, we haven't yet. We can
Yes,
now.
we did.
Yes, we can.
All right.
Yes.
All right.
I do have some other things in my suitcase, however.
Well, good,
So,
good. Well, wait till you get to Bill Lee, then you can tell me if you're going to complain or not.
right. Yes.
So, but anyway, we're really excited. I have to tell you, I have a big warehouse, and I'm known for being somewhat eclectic in nature. And I decided to dig into a pile of boxes the other day, and lo and behold, the things that came out just stunned me and surprised me. Here's one of them. This is a treatise published by the Smithsonian Institution in 1871, and I got to read it. It's the Observations of Terrestrial Magnetism, Deviations of the Compass, and it was recorded on the United States ironclad Monadnock during her cruise from Philadelphia to San Francisco in 1865, 1866.
Oh my goodness.
And the question some people may ask, why is this important? Well, if you're not aware, the Earth's magnetism we use for navigation purposes, and they discovered in the last few decades that the magnetic poles have been actually shifting, which can actually, if you don't keep up with that, you will get lost very quickly. So that's one of the reasons why this was an important study, and it goes back over hundreds of what,
Richard, let me ask here. That seems to be an oversized volume. Why is it necessary that it seems to be so big?
There's a lot of tables in it, a lot of formulas, and math symbols that I have no idea what they mean. Just to give you an idea, I think if I get that right, it just this and it's actually quite nicely readable because the side there's some charts like this. So this but it's there are people who would not only understand this, but who could probably get excited about this kind of a study that was done 150 years ago.
Well, it also, I think, is important as to indicate what the Smithsonian was doing 150 years ago.
Exactly, way ahead of the way ahead.
Because they were doing reports on so many different things.
Yeah.
Was it published in one of their annual reports, do you think?
No, I
Just
don't.
independently.
I think independently. I looked online. I didn't see anything that indicates it differently. But
Well, you know, Richard, once upon a time in a previous life, I was an infantry officer, and I was a great map reader, and you had to know the difference between true north, magnetic north, and the declination difference. Otherwise, you'd be a first lieutenant with 30 soldiers stuck, 30 TO'd soldiers stuck in the woods.
yeah, yeah. And in the wrong circumstances, you might have a bullet in your back.
Yeah.
So,
What else you got there?
So, well, here's another thing that popped up. You know, the story of Little Black Sambo, originally done in 1899, well, a lot of people don't realize there are literally hundreds and hundreds of variations on that book. So back in, let's see, what year did she do this? 1998, Phyllis Spartan published a bibliography of England. And this is actually the Bible. If you're collecting Little Black Sambo, this is the Bible. There are, I think, over 250 or close to 300 variations on the book Little Black Sambo. Very detailed bibliography, which is really great. Got pictures, and so you know, in our business, knowledge is important, and you've got to have the reference material if you want to get it right. So that's one of the other things. And I'll have a small collection of books on books, this being one of them. But the real fun.
You know, Richard, excuse me a quick second. It was interesting when I remember applying for the IOBA, the Independent Online Booksellers Association. One of the questions that they ask is, how many reference books do you have? They're trying to discern, you know, your legitimacy as a bookseller. And you know, I might have had a couple dozen at the time, but certainly it grew over the period of my book selling. And I've seen some booksellers with, you know, bookcases full of reference books. It's indispensable.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, part of the requirements for being in the ABAA is the reference library.
Well, I'm sitting here looking at 8 shelves of reference books.
8 shelves. All right, figure 25 per shelf. That's 200 books.
Yeah, it's probably close to that. And some of them are on things that you know you might need once in your career, but you found that reference book and it helped at the time.
Yeah.
We should do a show on that sometime.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're very important. I estimate that I've invested over $10,000 in reference books over the years.
I don't have that kind of investment, but it's significant. You know, it is because these are not cheap books.
Oh no.
You know, you don't find bargains on these books either.
And they were run. Usually they're done in very small quantities, anywhere from 100 up to 1,000.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the real.
All right, Richard, what's next?
Here's the real find, Ed. So my book collecting career started with the 1928 Appalachian Mountain Club guide book that I purchased when I was 12 years old at an auction. So I spent pretty much over 50 years assembling a collection of ANC guidebooks. And in fact, I discovered my collection. I found it buried in the boxes here this week. I haven't seen it in years. Here are two examples. The one on this one here is the 1907. I think it's my left hand. I think if you're looking at it, it probably should be on the left. And then this one here is the 1916 edition. I have 20 editions and 21 different volumes that I'm going to put up for sale. It is very rare to ever find a collection of these. This book alone by itself today is around the $4,000 book with the maps, which this has. So these are very hard to find in wonderful condition, and I'm going to have a collection of 20 different volumes, the first 20. So that was really one of my real special moments.
What are you digging out there, Lee?
Well, most of my books are already with Richard, but some of the things that I'm actually bringing that had to do with Boston is one thing is a collection of printed sermons from the 1850s from a variety of churches.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah, and I'm not sure because I don't know anything about them, and maybe Richard does. I'm not sure why it was so popular to print these sermons out. A lot of them are like the first sermon that a preacher did in a particular church, or a retirement, or things like that. And a couple of them are like there's one from Harriet Beecher Stowe's father, Lyman Beecher, and then I have a little brochure from her brother, Henry Ward Beecher, as well. But so I've got those, and I got a big stack of them. You know, if somebody collects these, they can get a deal on these. But another thing that I'm bringing, Roland Hayes was an African American tenor who was from here, outside of Calhoun. But
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What was his name?
Roland Hayes.
I'm sorry. But I can't think of Young Frankenstein, you know. Roll in the haze.
No.
Not the same roll in the haze, huh?
No. He, by a torturous path, wound up in Boston in about 1915 and began to make a name for himself as a classical singer. And his real successes early on were in Europe, but he lived in Boston pretty much his entire adult life. And so I'm taking books, records, a variety of things by him. But one thing that's going in my suitcase is a signed. This is from a book called I have to look and see. Artists and Music of Today by Helen Kaufman. And the drawing was done by Louis Lupus. This is taken out of that book, you know, as you can tell. I didn't take it.
Handsome man.
He was very handsome. He was rather short. He was a very dapper dresser. This has a facsimile signature in the book, but it also has a real signature of his from 1935. By 35, he was getting a lot of attention in the United States, but his early career and his early recordings, except for one that he had made for himself to sell at concerts, his early recordings were done in England. And I have his three earliest recordings that I'm taking with me. But this is a nice portrait of him with a nice signature, matted, ready to frame. So that's one of the things that's coming in my suitcase Friday.
Well, I'll tell you, Lee, those items should be well received. I consider Boston a very sophisticated crowd of shoppers. Not only do you get feelings from around the world who shop the show, but in fact, the general population in the area tends to be well educated and knowledgeable in their specific areas of interest. So I think
there is a memorial to him in Brookline that was not put up until 2016, and he died in 1969 at the age of 89. But-
Actually, in New England, in the past 20 years or so, 25 years, there's been a resurgence of recognizing artisans, writers.
Right.
In Milford, New Hampshire, they put up a statue of Harriet Wilson, who wrote the book Our Nig in 1859, I think it is. And that was the first book published by an African American, and she was from Milford, New Hampshire. And they actually put up a statue for her.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
You are a font of knowledge, Richard.
he was an interesting person, and his first biography, which he pretty much dictated to McKinley Helm, and of course I'll have copies of that. But his first biography was the way he wanted to be seen, and a 2015 biography of him brings in all the dirt, you know.
Yeah.
His affair with a Czechoslovakian aristocrat that resulted in a daughter and grandchildren, and that his family did not know about until much, much later. But when the monument was dedicated in Brookline, you know, just a few years ago, one of the grandsons from Europe was there, as was his daughter from the United States. So it was an interesting. It was interesting.
You've done some great homework on that, Lee. That's
Well,
fantastic.
we have a museum to him here, and my better material is on loan to the museum, unless it sells, and so it's coming with me this weekend.
Really good.
You can have room in your suitcase for a toothbrush?
Listen, y'all, I'm not going to go into the story of my suitcase today, but
And I'll take pictures when she gets there.
yeah.
Do that. Now, Richard, will you be having a booth? I know you're the manager of the fair, but will you be having a booth yourself?
I will be, and I'm very. I've been putting a lot of effort, especially in the last 2 weeks, into selecting the material to go and making everything show worthy.
Well, and I had to make decisions, you know, weeks ago on what was going to go. And it's like any other book fair, particularly if you're way outside of your normal area. Who knows? So we shall see. We
Yeah.
shall see.
All right,
Yeah.
this weekend, anybody in the 6 New England states, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, or Delaware, head on up to Boston. And where are they going to go, Richard? And what time is it going to happen?
They're going to go on October 28th, Saturday, to the Boston Back Bay Hilton, which is on 40 Dalton Street. The doors will open at 8 a.m. and open till 4 p.m. in the afternoon. There'll be lots of fun, lots of books, and lots of excitement.
I wish you both the best of luck and hope you, as we say in the business, have a great show.
Thank you, Ed. We will. Look forward to see you, Lee.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm leaving here at 5 o'clock Friday morning.
Well, you better. Boy, that's a long run. You're going to be able to.
I know. I'll do my best. Fortunately, I have a friend who's taking me to the airport
Oh,
for my 8 o'clock
oh,
flight.
you're flying. Oh,
I'm
that's
flying. I'm not going to run. No. I think my marathon days are over. Marathon
By
days-
plane or by broom?
Well, we'll see.
I'm sorry, it was a Halloween joke.
I know. I have on my Halloween earrings. So if the plane is late, I may resort to the broom.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Rare Book Cafe, the Book Lovers Rendezvous. Glad to have you. You can listen to us every week on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or wherever great podcasts are given away for free. Thank you, everybody. Bye, Lee. Bye, Richard.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
See you Friday.
Ciao.